Today we're going to make pasta from scratch. Most people when they eat gluten-free pasta have a variety to choose from. You can get corn pasta, rice pasta, quinoa pasta, lots of different things. But we're going to make pasta from scratch. It's not that hard and it tastes wonderful. So it's going to get a little bit messy. We're going to use our hands for this. So I'm going to put an apron on. Making gluten-free pasta from scratch is very similar to making wheat pasta from scratch. It just depends on the consistency of the dough and how you put it together. We've got sweet rice flour, and that's a difference. Not using white rice flour, but using Asian sweet rice flour. And I usually get it at the Asian market, and it's really powdery and very, very fine. We've got tapioca. We're gonna put these, mix these here in the bowl. We've got some guar gum, so that helps it go thick. And we're gonna add a pinch of salt. So let's just mix these around really quickly. The only other thing that we're going to add are 2 eggs. So one at a time. It's always best to crack an egg into a bowl just in case you get any shells. So I'm going to crack both of the eggs, but we're only going to put one in at a time. So what we do is, using the fork, we just keep stirring around and around and try and incorporate the flour into the egg. Now, like I said, this is going to take a little bit of work with our hands because it's not all going to happen in the bowl. We're going to pull it out onto the board. You can use your countertop if you've got a nice cutting board that you want to use. So you can see that there's some bits of it that are still wet. It's got that nice yellow color from the egg yolks. So let's move this out onto the board. Doesn't look anything like pasta yet. I have some extra sweet rice flour here if it starts to get a little too moist. So as you start playing with this, you'll notice that there's some really wet spots and there's some really dry spots. So what you're going to do is you're just going to keep kneading it till it all comes together. This is the same process that you use with wheat pasta, but of course you try not to knead it too much. It doesn't really matter with gluten-free pasta how much you knead it. There's no gluten to develop. This is something the kids might want to do. Now this is only a small recipe of this. This particular recipe will double and triple and multiply fairly easily. This is a fairly standard pasta recipe, and you can use this for lots of different things. If you want to make sheet pasta for lasagna, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is the recipe that you'd use. So as you can see, it's coming together. We're getting all those little bits in. Once all the little bits are in, if I'm still feeling that there's some moist spots, that's when I'd use a little bit of extra flour. And don't be afraid, if it's way too dry, you could always add a couple of drops of water as well. It will depend on the humidity in your room. Oh, this feels so nice now. It's not sticky. It's moist, but it's not sticky. That feels terrific. Now, there's no need to let this sit. Nothing's going to happen to it. You can even put it in the fridge if you don't want to do it right now. What I find is a really good way to portion it out is just roll it out into a log and then just cut it into pieces. And these are the pieces that we're going to put through the pasta roller. I have an electric pasta roller, and I'll show it to you and show you how it works. You may have a hand pasta roller. You may also have one that attaches onto another piece of kitchen equipment, either your mixer or some other piece of equipment. So we've got these portions of pasta. So the pasta machine is a series of rollers, and there's really only one knob on here. So the rollers start out nice and wide, and you put the pasta through, and then you make them narrower and narrower until you've achieved the right thickness for the pasta that you want. Now, with gluten-free pasta, you don't want to go really, really thin because it'll be much harder to handle. So once you've got the pasta at the right thickness, Then you can choose to put it through the fettuccine rollers to cut it, or even the spaghetti rollers. I find the fettuccine rollers work best with gluten-free. So we take one of these portions, and I do love my small, tiny roller, and we're gonna roll it out. Don't worry if there's cracks in it. That's gonna happen. We're gonna roll it out to something like this. We're gonna start the pasta machine nice and wide, and as you can see it go through, it'll get thinner and thinner. And I'll go through that process, and then I'll show you how I make noodles out of it. So now we've got our long, thin noodle. If I was going to make lasagna, I would use this now without cutting it or doing anything with it. And you don't have to cook this if you're going to make lasagna, because it'll cook in the oven in the sauce that you've got for the lasagna. But right now, I'm going to make noodles with this. So on my machine, I switch it out, and now we've got the noodles. I'm going to turn it on again, and you'll watch the noodles come out. Might seem like a lot of work for a few noodles. You don't need a lot of noodles. They will expand a lot. Whatever you have left here, you can always put back. So I'll just show you again. So we're rolling into just a long, flat, it's fairly thick piece. We're going to turn this on and put it through a couple of times, getting narrower and narrower until we're ready to make the noodles. Go for the noodles. So once you get these nice big pieces of pasta, you can make ravioli with it. So you would lay it down like this. You'd put your ravioli filling in, and then you'd lay another piece on top. So you'd cut off between the sides, and then put the filling on the top and crimp it down. So you can not only make lasagna, fettuccine noodles, you can also make ravioli. This is a really versatile pasta recipe. So the water's boiling now, and we've got our pasta. Some of the noodles broke off and they're a little small, but don't worry because you won't even notice that. Let's get these noodles off. If you've ever cooked fresh pasta, you'll know that it only takes a few minutes. So you start with the boiling water, and these noodles will float to the top. They'll become sort of engorged. They'll be much fluffier, and that's when they're ready. Nice and tender. Often gluten-free pasta wants to stick together. These noodles, not so much. They're fresh. That's one of the differences with them. Now, this pasta can be frozen and boiled off from frozen, or you can boil the noodles, put a little bit of olive oil on them, and then put them back in the freezer. So gluten-free noodles are way more filling. So you want to be careful how much you portion yourself. Now, I have some of my mother's homemade meat sauce here. This is the way I like my pasta. And with some fresh cheese on top. This looks amazing. The noodles stay nicely together. Just chewy enough. Tons of flavor. Definitely an egg noodle, an egg pasta. Nice and rich and smooth. Everyone in the family will love these.